So the reason that I made this talk, and I titled it The Final Word, was to do with the fact that I don't want this to be a subject that I'm going to talk about and for people in the audience to have no idea what it's about. I want this to become mainstream. I want this to become general chit-chat that people know, that people understand. Some of the things that I'm going to talk about today are going to make people's quality of life quite simply better. Now, I don't have the power in the next 18 minutes to make any of you leave this room more muscular, or to make any of you leave this room in better shape or leaner. But what I can do is get you guys to walk through those doors having a better understanding of maybe your partner's physique, your own physique, your partner's physiology, or your own physiology. And that's some pretty powerful stuff. So, fat loss simplified. If I was going to break it down into something really easy to understand, I'd say, mate, you need to move a bit more, you need to eat a bit less. Thank you, Bundaberg, you've been a great crowd, thank you. Unfortunately, it's not quite that simple, and it does go a little bit further on. So for any of you out there that are wondering how it occurs, I often relate to a bank account analogy. If you were to spend more than you were to earn, you'd be pretty pissed off if there wasn't money left in the bank, in your savings. And our body treats it very much the same. Should we be earning more than we spend, we accrue finances or fat gain for times that we maybe don't have quite so much money. If we wish to lose fat, we need to flip that on its head. We need to make sure that we spend more than we earn. And this creates something called a calorie deficit. Now, that in itself is how it occurs, but there are other things at play which we're going to talk about today. Before getting into that, it's important for you to understand some of the lingo that I'm going to talk about. So maintenance, that line across there, is how many calories you require on a daily basis. Should you exceed that, you go into what's known as a surplus. Should you not hit that, you go into something known as a deficit. So when I talk about these things throughout the talk, it's very important that you understand what those are. I had a conundrum through my coaching, through my personal training time. I qualified, like everyone else. Yet the things I'm speaking about today, I was never taught. I was allowed to go onto the personal training floor, into the gym. I was allowed to work with dozens of females, and no one ever told me this, and I was left to find it out myself. And that part is really the problem with all of this. And over the years, working with now several thousand clients at a time, I came to a conclusion. The physiological differences between genders when it comes to fat loss are too big to be overlooked by coaches, trainers, or women aspiring to better their physique and performance. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. The facts at a glance. Should a man or woman create the same deficit, they will lose the same amount of fat. Cool. However, it will take approximately 33% longer for a female to burn the same amount of calories. Cool. There are many more factors at play outside simply eating less and moving more when it comes to sustainable fat loss, especially in women. There's simple implications for couples that I don't think we're really talking about. If you ever see me at a restaurant when I'm out with my friends, I never look at the menu. I look at the people around me, and I wait for them to pick. Because the worst thing that can occur is for them to pick something, me to pick something separate, their food to come, and me to want what they're having. So instead, I wait, whatever my friends, my family, whatever they have, I go, yeah, I'm having the same thing, especially if they've picked the restaurant. For a couple, if this is to occur, that means that both parties are going to be consuming the same amount of calories. And I'm not saying that I think we need menus for women and menus for men. We just need to have this as a consideration. This also means, in a time perspective, that if a couple are sharing the journey to the gym, the male does a 1-hour workout, he looks at his partner, I'm off. She goes, I need half an hour. Why do you need half an hour? To burn the same amount of calories as you, because I ate the same meal as you last night. These are things that just aren't being thought about. Here we have the menstrual cycle. I've not had one, certainly not yet, but I'm going to be talking you through it today. Average menstrual cycle is 28 days long. In the middle, we have ovulation. The first part of the cycle is known as the follicular phase. The latter part is known as the luteal phase. And I'm probably doing the menstrual cycle a disservice if I was to say there's a good side and a bad side. The follicular phase is the good side. The luteal phase is more the bad side. In the middle, ovulation, just before, women have a spike in testosterone. It's where their best gym performances typically occur. And, to be crass, it's where they typically get the horniest, and it's because they are the most fertile part of the menstrual cycle. So lads in the room, take note. After menstruation, hit ovulation. After ovulation, we start to move towards the end of the cycle. Towards the end of the cycle, in the latter days, some women suffer with PMS. Now, putting that out there, oversimplifying it, that's fine. But there are considerations that we have to make whilst doing this. Measurements and metrics. If we were to say that you have a 4-week cycle, too many females are measuring themselves week on week, which means they are measuring different physiologies. This means that between week 1 and week 2, between week 2 and week 3, between week 3 and week 4, 4 separate sets of measurements, 4 separate sets of circumferences, no consideration to different physiologies across those. If you're going to make measurements, you must do it in line with your menstrual cycle. Week 1, week 1. Week 2, week 2. Week 3, week 3. Because changes outside of your control with your physiology can have a massive impact on fluctuations in weight and circumference. You are measuring changes in your physiology and you are beating yourself up about them. And that needs to be taken into consideration. Cravings and metabolic rate. In the luteal phase, the average woman will burn between 100 and 300 calories more a day. And in that period, women trying to stick to their existing diet or calorie amount without considerations for these increases in metabolic rate often end up binging, and the average woman eats about 500 calories more. Again, there's no knowledge surrounding these. And there's decreases in performance. Throughout the luteal phase, especially in PMS, women can see a decrease in performance where they might only be able to lift 60% of what they usually lift. They're at their highest chance of injury and their highest chance of dislocations. Yet again, as a personal trainer, why was no one telling me this? We need to think about when we start a diet. Are we aligning it with our menstrual cycle? If you start a diet just after ovulation, you are going into the toughest time to restrict calories, the toughest times to train, the toughest times to stick to a deficit. You are literally starting your diet at the wrong time. If you were to just give yourself a couple more weeks, you can start kicking with the wind. Again, why is no one talking about this? Why is this not something, hey, I'm thinking of starting this diet. Okay, is this a good time in your menstrual cycle for you to do so? Do we diet all the time? Well, no, we don't need to. And if we think about it like this, if you suffer very badly in the second part of your menstrual cycle, why not just diet for the first 2 weeks where things are good, where you can control your cravings, where you can perform in the gym? As I spoke about, if you stay at maintenance, you cannot gain negative weight because you're at maintenance. And a diet that you stick to for 2 weeks of every month is going to trump a diet where you don't stick to it at all. And we need to be thinking about this long term. And how do we manage our cycle? James, you've just told me that there's an increase in my metabolic rate between 100 and 300 calories. Could I program 3 pieces of fruit a day during that period of my menstrual cycle on top of my existing diet just to manage my cravings? Again, things that people aren't thinking about. And again, if there's an increase in metabolic rate, that's not a surplus. You would still be in a deficit by eating more. Polycystic ovary syndrome, again, is something that needs to be spoken about and needs to be understood by people. PCOS is what it's commonly known as, and it has a big impact in fat loss. Here I can show you the total daily energy expenditure components. These blocks are what make up the energy we burn in a day. Our BMR is the amount of energy we burn at rest, which is a considerable amount. Our NEAT is the amount that we burn through being active that's not planned training. If you opt to take the stairs instead of the elevator or walk up an elevator, you increase your NEAT component. Your TEF is your thermic effect of feeding. Eating a high-protein diet means you burn more calories through your body having to work harder to break down protein. And EAT at the top is our gym-based exercise. So as you can see, we don't burn as many calories in the gym as a lot of people think. There are other components outside of that that are much more important. How does that relate to PCOS? PCOS has shown to reduce people's BMR from 14 to 40%. 40% for a second is something we need to take into account. That is more calories than 4 gym sessions in a day, and why aren't people talking about it? You can make all the efforts by increasing your NEAT by taking the stairs. You can increase your thermic effect of feeding by increasing the amount of protein in your diet, and you can start training in the gym, but if you do not have considerations for PCOS, then unfortunately you are fighting a battle and you are going to lose that battle. Polycystic ovary syndrome affects 6 to 21% of women. That is huge. That's 1 in 5. There are potentially women out there that are going to need to diet on less than 1,000 calories a day to lose fat. But mainstream knowledge about nutrition, about menstrual cycles, about physiology is so poor across populations that people go, that's too low. And people chip in and go, you actually need to be eating more to lose fat. No, they don't. That doesn't make sense. That defies everything we know about fat loss. You need 2 out of 3 of the symptoms here. Hyperandrogenism, which is an increase in hormones including testosterone, actual cysts on your ovaries, or an irregular or discontinued menstrual cycle, which is known as amenorrhea or oligomenorrhea. Any 2 of those and you have polycystic ovary syndrome. And again, this is something we need to talk about. Much more prevalent in the obese. PCOS is something that is going to hinder fat loss, and it's most prevalent in the people that need it the most. Exercise, a low GI diet, and fat loss are the best solutions to treat symptoms. And this is with insulin resistance as well. Exercise is always going to be something we should be prescribing to people with any condition. And the same goes, low GI diet. This should happen when striving for a deficit most of the time anyway. And fat loss is always our main priority. Rather than looking for special foods, special diets, it just has to be fat loss. And reduction of calories is going to be king to begin with. We need to be pragmatic when it comes to periods. Pragmatic means dealing with things sensibly and realistically in a way that is based on practical rather than theoretical considerations. Theoretically, you might go, yeah, I'm going to diet 4 weeks of every month. But in practice, that may not be the case you can do it. You might go, I'm going to smash my gym training session on every week of every part of my cycle. But again, you might only be able to do it for 2 or 3 weeks. And then after that, you may have to put yourself on machines and do some high rep stuff. You may be susceptible to poor coordination. It must be taken into mind. Every woman in this room is to become her very best own scientist, and it is essential. You cannot Google or look on the internet to find out more about your own menstrual cycle because it is yours and it is unique, and it is not the same as the person sitting next to you, especially if that's a man. Physique expectations at the moment surround skinny culture. It surrounds being slim, and I don't like this. This isn't what our physiology or what women's physiology is about. Average woman requires 50,000 calories to survive pregnancy. That's why when you do not eat enough or you are too active, that you can hinder your ability to get pregnant. There is a six-pack culture, and that is not fitness to me. That isn't what we should be aspiring for. We have to stop glorifying that as the top of fitness and the highest thing you can accomplish. At the end of the day, we can either fight physiology or society. And if you fight your physiology to try and be as skinny as you can, you will lose that battle. However, if we fight society, we have a chance. We have the ability to try and push people back on moving the goalposts, moving the jumpers that have been put down as to where we should be aiming. The future of physique expectations to me are that strong is going to overtake skinny. Lifting in the gym, becoming strong, getting more chin-ups, this translates into other parts of your life as a woman. Progressive overload is something that women are now striving for, whether that's moving from a slightly heavier squat to a new exercise, just going into the gym, and instead of worrying about how you look, how slim you are, how close you are to abs, you're looking to add a couple kilograms onto your barbell hip thrust. You're starting to get another chin up, and that chin up is becoming more important to you and giving you more happiness at the end of a gym training session than checking your abs in the mirror or getting into a new pair of jeans was. And now, one of my favorite parts is that there is a movement occurring at the moment, the glute movement, where now, if your jeans don't fit, it's a good thing. That's great, brilliant, I don't fit in my jeans, that's great. Hold on, you were crying about that a month ago, and this is fantastic. Women are now training for muscle growth, which means they're eating for muscle growth. They're sleeping for muscle growth. They're going into the gym, and the most important thing to them is getting their training done. It's not about burning calories or earning back food or, oh, I went for a run so I can have a cookie. It's so that men can go into the gym, and instead of looking at a woman in a nice pair of leggings going, she looks nice, they're looking at her and going, how the hell is she getting that weight up off the floor for that many reps? And this is a great thing for female training. Weight gain is not only cyclical, and when I say cyclical, as you can see with the diagram, it's up and down. This happens. For you to think that weight gain is not cyclical is naive. It's normal. And I've put a little Santa emoji there, because if you didn't gain weight at Christmas, I don't know what you were doing at Christmas, but it wasn't the same as the rest of the world. Weight gain is not a problem. The problem sits within people not knowing or fully understanding the processes after the weight gain to lose it in a sustainable and adherable manner. Today, this talk is about understanding different parts of your cycle, understanding different parts of your physiology, and understanding conditions that will be hindering your progress. Empowerment, which is what these talks are about. The definition is the authority or power given to someone to do something, which is ultimately what I need you lot to do after here. Confidence, to do things you haven't done before. Audaciousness, to go into parts of the gym, to set up a hip thrust, to go into a squat rack, to ask someone how many sets they have left on an exercise. Eradicating frustration that people are facing when dieting, especially when we can eradicate frustration that is not necessary, being deflated with having a poor workout or feeling flat or not hitting a PR. These are normal, and when you expect them and you walk into the gym and you know that that's coming, it will give you a better quality of life of training and a happier life of dieting. Dieting, we've seen it, it's cyclical, it happens. You will have peaks and troughs, ups and downs. Dieting is normal, and I want your life of doing that to be as happy as possible. Balance, and that doesn't mean carrying chicken and broccoli everywhere. It means having a gin and tonic at the weekend and understanding the repercussions and the implications of what you do as part of living a happy life. A better understanding of female physiology by everyone, including men, will mean a better quality of life when facing periods of caloric restriction for women worldwide. This is not just an empowering set of ideas worth sharing. These are empowering ideas that need sharing. Thank you very much.